Have you ever heard someone say, never save money? It sounds absolutely crazy, doesn't it? In a world where prices are skyrocketing and everyone is telling us to tighten our belts and to save for a rainy day, this advice feels like a splash of cold water. But believe it or not, this was the powerful, life-changing lesson an old grandfather left for his grandson, a lesson that completely shattered every stereotype about wealth and security. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are traveling to the sun-drenched fringes of the Australian Outback, where the red dust meets the ancient ghost gums. In this rugged landscape, we'll discover a profound fable about the true nature of money. This story isn't just for those looking to get rich, it's for anyone who feels stuck in the endless cycle of making ends meet. Before we begin our journey into the heart of the bush, I want to say a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you. Your support and presence here mean more than words can say. If you enjoy stories that touch the soul and spark the mind, please consider hitting that subscribe button with a spirit of gratitude. It's a small click for you, but it's a massive encouragement for us to keep sharing these values. Now, let's sit back and listen to the story of old Jack and the egg that was worth more than a jar of gold. In a small, dusty town on the edge of the Australian Outback, where the hot wind carries the scent of eucalyptus and the horizon stretches forever, lived a man named Jack. To the locals, he was known as Dreaming Jack. But behind his back, some of the hard-working shearers called him Lazy Jack. While his neighbors were up before the kookaburras, drafting sheep or fixing bores, Jack could usually be found leaning against the trunk of a weathered ghostgum tree, his eyes fixed on the shimmering heat haze. He wasn't working. He was dreaming. One day, Jack would say in his low, gravelly drawl, "I'm gonna own the biggest station in the territory. I'll have thousands of head of black Angus cattle, and a homestead with a veranda so wide you could host a cricket match on it." But Jack's one day was like a desert mirage. It looked real from a distance, but disappeared the closer you got. He had the vision, but he never bothered to pick up a shovel. Eventually, the townspeople stopped laughing at his tall tales. They just felt a quiet sadness for his wife, Sheila. Sheila was a true blue Aussie woman, tough as old boots and rarely one to complain. She spent her days in their corrugated iron shack, washing, cleaning, and trying to stretch a dollar further than a long-haul road train. One evening, as the sky turned a bruised purple and the first stars began to blink, she sat on the porch next to him. "Jack, love," she said softly, "dreams are a beautiful thing, but they don't fill a tucker bag. We've got bills piling up and the pantry is looking thin. It's time to stop looking at the clouds and start looking at the dirt." Jack just nodded, his gaze still far away. "No worries, Sheila. I'll find a way. Someday." But the outback is a harsh teacher. A long drought gripped the land, and the little money they had began to evaporate like a puddle in January. The turning point came on a silent, breathless night. Their young grandson, Liam, walked into the kitchen with dusty, bare feet. The boy looked thin, his blue eyes wide and tired. "Grandpa," Liam whispered, "is there any bread left? Maybe just a bit of Vegemite on a crust." Sheila opened the cupboard. It was empty. Not a slice of bread, not a grain of rice. Nothing. Jack looked at his grandson's bare feet and felt a sharp, stinging pain in his chest. That night, for the first time in his life, Jack didn't dream of cattle stations. He didn't sleep at all. He realized that a dream is just a seed, but without the sweat of your brow, it will simply wither in the red dust. At sunrise, Jack did something the town hadn't seen him do in years. He put on his work boots and went looking for a job. He found work as a labourer in the wheat fields. The Australian sun was a hammer, and the dry earth was the anvil. He worked until his back screamed and his hands were raw and blistered. Every night, he'd limp home, exhausted. Sheila would cook what little they had, maybe a few beans or a simple damper. Liam would run out to meet him. "What did you get today, Grandpa?" Jack would pull a few crumpled notes and some coins from his pocket. "It's not a fortune, mate, but it's a start," he'd say with a weary smile. However, Jack soon realized a sad truth: the money came in, but it flew out just as fast. Rent, medicine for Sheila's cough, fixing a leak in the roof, the problem stayed while the money vanished. Saving felt like trying to catch the wind in a net. One afternoon at the local general store, he heard a group of men talking. "The secret is saving, Jack," one man barked. "Keep your money in your pocket, and you'll be safe." Those words stuck. Jack found an old glass jar and hid it under the floorboards. Every week, he dropped a few coins inside. Clink! Clink! The sound gave him a sense of security he'd never felt before. "This is our tomorrow, Liam," he told the boy. To fill that jar, they lived like hermits. Jack wore boots with holes in the soles. They skipped meals. Sheila grew worried. "What's the use of having a jar full of silver if we are too weak to walk, Jack?" "You'll see," he promised. "One day, you'll understand." Months passed until the jar was heavy and full. Proudly, Jack took it to the market to buy 3 sacks of grain for the winter. But the shopkeeper just shook his head. "Prices have gone up, Jack. This jar only buys a sack and a half now." Jack was stunned. His hard-earned savings had lost their power. The money was there, but its value had shouted through like water in the sand. He sat on his porch that evening, defeated, until he noticed his neighbors. One was carrying a bucket of fresh milk, another had a basket of eggs. They looked peaceful. That was when the seed of an idea finally sprouted. He looked at Liam and asked, "What if we buy some chickens, mate?" This time, Jack didn't wait for someday. He took his savings and bought a handful of scrawny hens. Liam laughed as they pecked around the yard. "Look, Grandpa. We've got our own little egg factory." At first, there was only 1 egg. Then 2. They ate some, and Jack sold the rest. With that money, he didn't put it back in the jar, he bought another chicken. Then another. Slowly, the factory grew. Jack kept a little notebook, recording every egg and every cent. Soon, the whole town was coming to Jack for fresh eggs. The house was no longer silent and heavy, it was full of life and hope. One morning, Jack held a single, warm egg in his hand and showed it to Liam. "You see this, mate? This egg is more powerful than a whole jar of coins. Money can run out. It can lose its value. But if you use it the right way, it grows, just like life itself." Liam hugged him tight. "So you aren't dreaming, Jack, anymore?" Jack smiled, a tear tracing a path through the dust on his cheek. "No, little mate. I've learned the greatest lesson of all: never just save your money. Make it grow." The story of old Jack and his chickens in the Australian Outback is more than just a tale about finance. It is a blueprint for a life of purpose. As we reflect on his journey, there are 3 powerful lessons we can take away to help us build a better future. 1. Dreams require the sweat of the brow. We all have dreams, those big cattle stations in our minds. But as Jack discovered, dreams cannot fill an empty stomach. Action is the bridge between the world of someday and the reality of today. If you want your life to change, you have to be willing to pick up the tools and do the work, even when the sun is hot and your back hurts. 2. The trap of dead savings. Saving money is a foundation, but it isn't the finish line. If you only hoard what you have, you are at the mercy of a world that is always changing and prices that are always rising. In Jack's world, the jar of coins was stagnant. But the chickens were alive. True wealth comes from putting your resources into things that produce value, whether that's a small business, your own education, or an investment that grows over time. 3. The power of starting small. Jack didn't start with 1,000 cattle. He started with a few scrawny hens. Many of us never start because we think we don't have enough. But even a small start can change your life if you have the discipline to keep it growing. A final thought and a heartfelt request as we wrap up today's story. I want to leave you with this: money is like the artesian water beneath the Australian soil. If it stays trapped underground, the land stays a desert. But if you tap into it and let it flow, you can turn a wasteland into a garden. If this story resonated with you, please show your support by hitting the like button. It helps our community grow and allows these messages to reach more people who might be struggling today. What did you think of Jack's transformation? Are you currently saving in a jar or growing your chickens? I would love to read your thoughts and wisdom in the comments below. Let's start a conversation that helps us all move toward a more prosperous and meaningful life. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and join our family. We share these stories with a spirit of deep appreciation for your time and your journey. May you find the courage to turn your someday into today, and the wisdom to make your life grow in ways you never thought possible. Thank you for being here. Stay wise, stay grateful, and I'll see you in the next story. Cheers, mates.